The empty space beside her starship drifted silently through the endless sea of stars. Outside the wide glass panels of the command deck, entire galaxies sparkled like jewels scattered across black velvet. But inside, the ship felt cold, heavy, and full of shadows. Dr. Eleanor Ward sat alone at her station, her hands resting on the console, but her eyes far away. There was an empty chair next to her. That chair had once belonged to Cale, her partner, not just a partner in duty, but someone who had understood her in a way no one else ever had. Cale had been alien, a warrior from a race older than humanity, with silver markings across his skin, and eyes that glowed faintly when he spoke. Yet he had never felt alien to her. He had been family. He had been her anchor in the endless dark. Now, that chair was empty. The silence around her was not just the silence of deep space. It was the silence of loss. She could almost hear Cale's voice in her memory, calm and steady, always carrying a weight of wisdom. She could almost see him leaning forward during missions, pointing out details she missed, reminding her to breathe when fear was too strong. But Cale was gone. He had died 3 months ago, on a mission that had gone horribly wrong. Their ship had been ambushed by hostile raiders near the Nebula Corridor. When the enemy broke through the shields, it was Cale who had stepped forward, fighting with all his strength to hold the line. He had saved the crew, but he had not returned. His last glance at her, those glowing eyes locking with hers, still haunted her every night. Elena had never forgiven herself. The door to the command deck slid open with a hiss. Commander Rourke, the ship's leader, entered. He was a tall, stern man with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked at Elena with something between pity and concern. "Doctor," he said quietly, "we can't leave that chair empty forever." Elena's chest tightened. She knew what he meant. The High Command had been debating for weeks about who would replace Cale as her mission partner. She had resisted every name they suggested. None of them deserved it. None of them could fill that space. "No one can replace him," Elena said, her voice sharp. Commander Rourke sighed. "We don't want to replace him, but the missions continue. We need someone by your side." Elena turned her face away, her eyes stinging. She knew the logic of his words. She knew she couldn't work alone forever, but the thought of another person sitting in Cale's chair felt like a betrayal. It felt like erasing him. Rourke placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but gentle. "You may not like the decision, but orders are orders. The replacement arrives tomorrow." Her heart froze. She wanted to argue, to shout, but the words caught in her throat. Tomorrow. Someone would walk through those doors tomorrow and sit in Cale's chair. After the commander left, Elena stayed behind on the empty deck. She touched the back of the chair with trembling fingers, her mind drifting to memories of Cale's laughter, rare but bright, like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Don't let them forget me," he had once joked, after a dangerous mission where they barely survived. She had laughed then, promising she never would. Now the promise felt heavier than the stars above. The ship's system beeped, breaking her thoughts. A message flashed across her console. Incoming transfer. Captain Marcus Hale assigned mission partner. She stared at the name. Human. Of course it was human. She felt anger rush through her veins. They thought a human soldier could replace Cale? A man with no connection to the old ways, no understanding of Cale's culture, no memory of his sacrifice. Her fists tightened. "I will never accept him," she whispered into the cold air. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in her quarters, staring at the dim lights above. Every creak of the ship made her think of Cale's absence. Every hum of the engines reminded her of the times he explained how they worked in his calm, patient tone. Finally, she rose and walked to the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly, reminding her how small she was, how fragile all of them were. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass and let the tears come, silent and heavy. "Why him? Why not me?" she whispered. But the stars had no answers. The next morning, the entire crew gathered at the docking bay. Elena stood at the back, her arms crossed, her face hard. The massive steel doors opened with a hiss as the shuttle arrived. Out stepped a tall man in a black uniform, his short hair cut in military style, his eyes sharp but strangely calm. Captain Marcus Hale. He looked around the bay with steady confidence. Then his gaze stopped on her. Their eyes met for the first time, and something in his expression flickered, not arrogance, not pride, but something quieter, something unreadable. Elena felt her jaw tighten. She would not welcome him. She would not let him near Cale's memory. The silence in the docking bay was heavy as Marcus stepped forward, and Elena knew in her heart this was the beginning of a battle. She had no interest in fighting but one. She could not escape. The unwanted replacement docking bay doors closed behind him with a loud echo, and the sound seemed to follow Elena as she walked away. She wanted nothing to do with Captain Marcus Hale. To her, he was not a partner. He was an intruder, a shadow walking into a space that belonged to someone else. The crew, however, did not share her feelings. Engineers stepped forward to greet him, offering quick handshakes and polite words. Young cadets looked up at him with admiration. He carried himself like someone used to command, but without arrogance. His posture was straight, his movements precise, but his eyes moved gently from face to face as though measuring each person with quiet respect. Elena stayed at the far end of the hall, arms folded. She could not bring herself to stand near him. Her chest burned with silent anger. She thought of Kel's last moments, of how his voice had cracked as he told her to survive, and how this stranger now dared to stand in his place. Later, in the command deck, Commander Rourke introduced Marcus. Formally, this is Captain Marcus Hale. He will serve as Dr. Ward's partner for upcoming missions. His record speaks for itself. He has survived 3 frontline wars, led squads through impossible battles, and carries medals most of us have never seen. Murmurs of respect passed through the crew. Marcus gave a short nod. I am honored to serve with you all, he said simply. His voice was calm, steady, and not overly proud. Elena said nothing. She kept her gaze fixed on the star map projected in front of her, as though Marcus were not even there. When the meeting ended, Marcus walked toward her. For a moment, Elena thought he might offer his hand, but he did not. Instead, he stopped at a respectful distance. I know you don't want me here, he said quietly. Elena's eyes snapped to his, sharp as blades. You're right. I don't. There was no anger in his reply, only a slow breath. I'm not here to replace him. I couldn't even if I tried. I'm just here to do my duty. Her fists tightened. His calmness only made her angrier. Duty? Do you even understand what this chair means? That was Kel's place. He gave his life for this crew, and you think sitting there is just duty? Marcus's expression didn't change, but a shadow passed in his eyes. I know what it's like to lose someone who gave everything, more than you think. Before she could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving her with a bitter taste in her mouth. She told herself his words were just empty phrases. Humans always spoke of loss like they understood it, but none of them had ever lived through Kel's sacrifice. None of them had felt that bond. That night, Elena worked late in the laboratory section, scanning alien fragments recovered from their last mission. The Hummel machine surrounded her, but she hardly noticed. Kel used to sit across the table, his strange handwriting filling notes as they debated theories. Now she worked alone. The door opened behind her. She did not look up. You don't have to stay up every night, Marcus said. Her voice was cold. You don't have to tell me how to work. I'm not telling you. I'm just saying, the human body still needs rest. Even out here, Elena slammed the data pad down. Stop pretending you care. You don't know me. You don't know what I've lost. So don't stand there and act like you do. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Finally, he stepped closer, enough that she could see the scar across his neck, an old wound, deep and ugly, cutting just below his jawline. She had noticed it before, but never asked. Now, the light caught it in sharp detail. This scar, he said, his tone low, came from the war on Haloran. My brother was beside me that day. He didn't walk out of it. I did. Every breath I take since then has felt like borrowed time. For the first time, Elena felt her anger falter, but she quickly built her walls again. That doesn't mean you belong in Kel's place. I never said I did. He turned away, his voice softer. But I'm not your enemy, Dr. Ward. When he left, the silence of the lab felt even heavier. Elena stared at the scar in her memory, unsettled. She told herself it meant nothing. It didn't change the truth. He was still an intruder. The next day, the crew prepared for a scouting mission near a dead planet on the edge of the sector. Strange signals had been detected, faint, broken transmissions from deep underground. Commander Rourke ordered Elena and Marcus to lead the investigation. Elena protested instantly. Send another team. I will not work with him. But Rourke's expression was final. Orders are clear. You to go together. Her blood boiled. She wanted to refuse, but protocol bound her. She could not disobey. As she suited up for the mission, Marcus approached once more. He adjusted the strap on his armor and gave her a brief nod. "You don't have to like me," he said. "Just stay alive out there. That's all I ask." Elena put on her helmet without answering. She swore silently to herself she would not trust him. Not now. Not ever. The shuttle doors closed. The engines roared. The mission had begun, and in the silence of space, tension hung like a blade between them, waiting to cut, waiting to test. Then both dot shadows on the horizontal shuttle cut through the endless dark, its engines humming like a restless heartbeat. Dr. Elena Ward sat strapped in her seat, staring out at the approaching planet. Beside her, Captain Marcus Hale adjusted his weapon and checked the readings on his wrist console. Neither spoke. The silence between them was sharper than any blade. The planet below looked like a ghost. Its surface was cracked and dry, colored in dull shades of gray and ash. Broken mountains rose like jagged teeth, and deep craters stretched across the land as though the world itself had been torn apart. Long ago, this place had once belonged to Kel's people. Elena knew the history well. He had told her stories of his ancestors, of great cities and temples now lost, and now she was returning, but without him. Her heart twisted painfully. She remembered the way Kel's voice had softened whenever he spoke of this world. "It holds memories," he once told her. "It holds the voices of my kind." Now those voices were only whispers carried by the cold wind of space. The shuttle landed on the cracked surface with a hiss of steam. Dust swirled around the landing gear. Elena stepped out first, her boots crunching on the brittle ground. The air smelled of rust and ash even through her helmet's filter. The ruins of tall structures loomed in the distance, their shapes half buried under rock and time. "This place is dead," Elena muttered. "Dead things can still hold secrets," Marcus replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes scanned the horizon carefully. They moved forward together, though every step widened the wall between them. Elena kept her eyes on the ruins, refusing to acknowledge the steady presence at her side. Yet she could not ignore how Marcus moved. His steps were silent, his gaze always sharp. He moved like a man who expected danger in every shadow dot. At the entrance of the ruins, Elena touched the stone with her gloved hand. Strange carvings lined the wall, spirals and symbols Kale once explained to her. She whispered the meaning under her breath: memory, protection, warning. "Do you know what it says?" Marcus asked quietly, her jaw tightened. "You wouldn't understand." He didn't press her, only nodded and continued forward. Inside, the ruins were dark and narrow. Their flashlights cut through the dust, casting long shadows against the cracked walls. Every sound echoed: the crunch of boots, the low hum of their scanners, the faint creak of stone shifting above. Elena's scanner beeped suddenly. A faint signal flickered on the screen, coming from deep inside the structure. It was broken, almost like a heartbeat. "There," she whispered, "something's alive down here." Marcus leaned over her shoulder to steady the screen. She pulled away. Instantly, unwilling to let him too close, he pretended not to notice. "We follow it," he said. They descended deeper, the air growing colder, the silence heavier. Elena felt her pulse race. Something about this place was wrong. It was not just dead, it was watching. She slowed her steps, her flashlight trembling slightly in her hand. "Do you feel that?" she asked before she could stop herself. Marcus glanced at her. "Yes, we're not alone." The word sent a chill down her spine. They entered a wide chamber where broken statues stood like silent guards. Dust covered the floor, but in the center were fresh marked scratches in the stone, as though something heavy had been dragged across it. Elena knelt down, her gloved fingers brushing the marks. This wasn't made centuries ago. This was recent, before Marcus could respond. A low sound filled the chamber. It was not mechanical, not natural. It was something in between, like metal grinding mixed with a growl. Elena's breath caught in her throat. From the shadows, shapes began to move. At first they looked like statues, tall and jagged, but then their eyes glowed faintly red. One by one, they stepped forward. Their bodies made of broken stone and alien machinery fused together. "Machines," Marcus said, raising his weapon. His voice was steady, but his stance was tense. "Guardians." The nearest machine let out a sharp, metallic cry, the sound echoing like a scream through the ruins. More red eyes lit up in the darkness. Elena froze, her heart pounding. She thought of Kale, of how he once warned her that the ruins of his people were never empty. "Some doors," he had told her were closed for a reason. Now she understood. Marcus grabbed her arm and pulled her back as the first guardian lunged forward, its limbs cutting through the dust. She stumbled, her flashlight clattering across the stone floor. The shadows came alive with movement, dozens of glowing eyes, heavy footsteps, the sound of stone grinding against stone. Marcus raised his weapon. "Stay behind me." Eleanor wanted to argue, to scream that she didn't need his protection. But when the first guardian charged, the ground shook so violently that all she could do was stumble back. For the first time since Kel's death, true fear gripped her chest. And in that moment, in the dark heart of the ruins, she realized this was only the beginning. Trapped in the ruins, chambers shook as the first guardian charged. Its heavy body slammed into the stone floor, sending cracks through the ground. Eleanor stumbled backward, her heart racing. Dust fell from the ceiling like a warning. Marcus didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon and fired. The blast hit the guardian's chest, breaking off shards of stone and sparks of metal. But the machine didn't stop. It roared, a horrible sound of grinding gears and echoing voices, and swung one massive arm toward him. Marcus rolled aside, the blow smashing into the wall where he had just stood. Broken rocks scattered across the floor. "Run!" Marcus shouted. Eleanor froze. For a moment, she thought of Kale, how he would have fought with his strange energy weapon, how he would have stood tall and fearless. But Kale was not here. Only Marcus was, and the guardians were still coming. She forced her legs to move. She sprinted down the narrow passage, her breath quick and sharp inside her helmet. The walls shook as more guardians came alive, their red eyes glowing from the shadows. Behind her, Marcus fired again and again. The sound of his weapon echoed through the ruins, followed by the crash of collapsing stone. She risked a glance back and saw him standing firm, blocking the path so she could escape. "Keep moving," he called. They reached a split in the tunnels. Eleanor hesitated, not knowing which way to go. The scanner on her wrist flickered with static. "This way," Marcus said, pulling her left. His voice was steady, but she saw the strain in his movements. He was fighting to keep control. They ran through the narrow halls, the guardians' footsteps shaking the floor behind them. The ruins groaned as if the entire world was waking from a long sleep. Finally, they entered another chamber, but instead of freedom, they found themselves trapped. The walls curved high above, smooth and solid. Only one entrance already blocked by the guardians stepping inside. Eleanor's chest tightened. "We're cornered." Marcus scanned the walls quickly. His eyes darted from surface to surface. "There has to be another way out. Look for a passage." Eleanor's hands shook as she touched the walls, searching for cracks, carvings, anything that could open. But the stone was unyielding. The guardians moved closer, their steps heavy, their voices a chorus of grinding metal. Marcus lifted his weapon. Again, "Stay behind me." Eleanor wanted to shout at him, to tell him not to give orders like he knew her. But the words caught in her throat when she saw his face. His eyes were calm, but his jaw was set like stone. He was ready to fight until the end. The guardians attacked. Marcus fired at the first one, hitting his head and shattering part of the glowing red eye. The machine stumbled, but didn't fall. The second swung its arm at Eleanor. She ducked, the blow barely missing her. The force of it cracked the ground at her feet. She gasped, stumbling back. For a second, terror froze her body. Then Marcus was there, pulling her out of the way and pushing her behind him.